The door opens with a groan that sounds almost human, like it too is dreading the day ahead. The street is narrow, hemmed in by crooked timber houses that lean like nosy old women trying to overhear one another. You step out, and the first thing that hits you is the smell. A choking, fermented blend of ash, manure, spoiled food, and, somewhere beneath it all, the subtle sweetness of wood smoke. The air is so thick you could almost chew it. You tug your tunic closer as you step into the sludge of the lane. It's not quite mud, not quite anything, really. A mix of rainwater, animal droppings, and who knows what that squelches underfoot with every step. Your shoes are little more than leather slippers, barely enough to keep the cold out. Let alone whatever just squirmed between your toes. Your feet sting as they adjust, cold and wet seeping through the seams. You already miss the hearth's glow, but it's long gone behind you. Instead, your senses are ambushed by the chaos of a Tudor town waking up. Doors bang open, shutters creak, chickens scatter underfoot, and above all this rises the unholy chorus of pigs. Pigs, oddly enough, have free rein of the street, snorting, trotting, and occasionally getting into loud arguments with geese. One waddles past you now, trailing a string of something unmentionable. Its eyes are beady, calculating. You step aside politely. In Tudor England, even poultry deserves respect, or at least wariness. The morning light glints off puddles and chamber pot runoff. Yes, people still toss their waste into the street with the faintest of warnings. If they bother at all, a sleepy gardy-loo might float down from an upper window. But if you're under it, well, consider it a baptism of sorts, one that smells like cabbage and regret. A cart lumbers past, pulled by a mule that looks like it's made entirely of size. The driver mutters curses under his breath as the wheels rattle and jerk in the uneven path. He doesn't look at you, but his eyes flick down to your shoes, your tunic, your general dishevelment. Everyone's always assessing you. Are you worth pickpocketing, robbing, ignoring? A boy runs past you barefoot, carrying a bundle of sticks. His face is smudged with ash, and he grins like he knows something you don't. Maybe he does. Children grow fast here, not just in height but in hardness. Games are played in the same streets where executions happen. Imagination thrives in alleys where grown men fear to walk after dusk. Historians still debate whether Tudor towns were truly as foul-smelling as often described, or if Victorian authors simply exaggerated to make themselves feel cleaner. But standing here, nostrils full of rotten rosemary, you suspect the truth isn't flattering. You pass a tavern just opening its shutters. Inside, a woman slaps down a rag on a greasy table, muttering about last night's spills. The tavern cat peers at you from the doorway, tail flicking like it's seen every bad decision ever made in that building. It probably has. Then comes the first clang of the town bell, echoing from the church tower with a hollow, metallic groan. It's not quite on time. It rarely is. Time here is more of a suggestion than a schedule. Still, the sound sends ripples through the street. Merchants unlatching stalls, apprentices sprinting toward shops, and gossip beginning to bubble like stew left too long. You shuffle past a woman balancing a basket of turnips on her hip. She eyes you suspiciously, as if you might try to nick one. You weren't planning on it, but now that she's staring, your stomach growls again. The bread and ale haven't lasted long. That's the thing about Tudor meals, they're brief, functional, and often stolen by dogs if you look away. You envy the dogs. Really, no taxes, no sumptuary laws, no need to explain why your cap isn't black on a Sunday. You spot a constable rounding the corner. Not quite a soldier, not quite a cop, but definitely someone with a cudgel and too much time. You straighten your back, smooth your sleeves, and avoid eye contact. He's not looking for trouble, but he won't mind finding some. That's the unspoken rule. The streets belong to everyone and no one. Nobles sweep through in horse-drawn elegance. Laborers drag buckets. Beggars mutter blessings, or curses, at anyone who walks too fast. And then, of course, there's the mud. It's always there. You step over a puddle and land ankle-deep in another, sending cold splashes up your shin. Your heel slips for a terrifying second. And for a moment you think you might land face first into the medieval welcome mat. But you steady yourself, barely, and pretend nothing happened. Your toes are numb now. And not in a good way. There's a tingling that says, today will be long. Possibly very long. But just then, the sun slices through the clouds, thin, hesitant beams that glint off wet wood and thatch. For a moment, the street looks almost beautiful. The steam rising from the puddles curls like lazy ghosts. A washerwoman hums a tune you half recognize from modern movies, except, of course, it predates all that by centuries. The melody is haunting, soft, and stubborn as ivy. And just as your muscles begin to loosen, just as you think, maybe this won't be so bad, a rooster flaps out of nowhere and nearly takes your ear off. You duck instinctively, heart leaping like a startled rabbit. A man laughs from a doorway. First time? He says with a grin. You manage a smile, shaky but polite. Your feet sting. Your back's already starting to ache. And the day has barely begun. The door opens with a groan that sounds almost human. Like it too is dreading the day ahead. The street is narrow, hemmed in by crooked timber houses that lean like nosy old women trying to overhear one another. You step out, and the first thing that hits you is the smell. A choking, fermented blend of ash, manure, spoiled food, and, somewhere beneath it all, the subtle sweetness of wood smoke. The air is so thick you could almost chew it. You tug your tunic closer as you step into the sludge of the lane. It's not quite mud, not quite anything, really. A mix of rainwater, animal droppings, and who knows what that squelches underfoot with every step. Your shoes are little more than leather slippers, barely enough to keep the cold out. Let alone whatever just squirmed between your toes. Your feet sting as they adjust, cold and wet seeping through the seams. You already miss the hearth's glow, but it's long gone behind you. Instead, your senses are ambushed by the chaos of a Tudor town waking up. Doors bang open, shutters creak, chickens scatter underfoot, and above all this rises the unholy chorus of pigs. Pigs, oddly enough, have free rein of the street, snorting, trotting, and occasionally getting into loud arguments with geese. One waddles past you now, trailing a string of something unmentionable. Its eyes are beady, calculating. You step aside politely. In Tudor England, even poultry deserves respect, or at least wariness. The morning light glints off puddles and chamber pot runoff. Yes, people still toss their waste into the street with the faintest of warnings. If they bother at all, a sleepy gardez-vous might float down from an upper window. But if you're under it, well, consider it a baptism of sorts. One that smells like cabbage and regret. A cart lumbers past, pulled by a mule that looks like it's made entirely of size. The driver mutters curses under his breath as the wheels rattle and jerk in the uneven path. He doesn't look at you, but his eyes flick down to your shoes, your tunic, your general dishevelment. Everyone's always assessing you. Are you worth pickpocketing, robbing, ignoring? A boy runs past you barefoot, carrying a bundle of sticks. His face is smudged with ash, and he grins like he knows something you don't. Maybe he does. Children grow fast here, not just in height but in hardness. Games are played in the same streets where executions happen. Imagination thrives in alleys where grown men fear to walk after dusk. Historians still debate whether Tudor towns were truly as foul-smelling as often described, or if Victorian authors simply exaggerated to make themselves feel cleaner. But standing here, nostrils full of rotten rosemary, you suspect the truth isn't flattering. You pass a tavern just opening its shutters. Inside, a woman slaps down a rag on a greasy table, muttering about last night's spills. The tavern cat peers at you from the doorway, tail flicking like it's seen every bad decision ever made in that building. It probably has. Then comes the first clang of the town bell, echoing from the church tower with a hollow, metallic groan. It's not quite on time. It rarely is. Time here is more of a suggestion than a schedule. Still, the sound sends ripples through the street. Merchants unlatching stalls, apprentices sprinting toward shops, and gossip beginning to bubble like stew left too long. You shuffle past a woman balancing a basket of turnips on her hip. She eyes you suspiciously, as if you might try to nick one. You weren't planning on it, but now that she's staring, your stomach growls again. The bread and ale haven't lasted long. That's the thing about Tudor meals, they're brief, functional, and often stolen by dogs if you look away. You envy the dogs. Really, no taxes, no sumptuary laws, no need to explain why your cap isn't black on a Sunday. You spot a constable rounding the corner. Not quite a soldier, not quite a cop, but definitely someone with a cudgel and too much time. You straighten your back, smooth your sleeves, and avoid eye contact. He's not looking for trouble, but he won't mind finding some. That's the unspoken rule. The streets belong to everyone and no one. Nobles sweep through in horse-drawn elegance. Laborers drag buckets. Beggars mutter blessings, or curses, at anyone who walks too fast. And then, of course, there's the mud. It's always there. You step over a puddle and land ankle-deep in another, sending cold splashes up your shin. Your heel slips for a terrifying second, and for a moment you think you might land face first into the medieval welcome mat. But you steady yourself, barely, and pretend nothing happened. Your toes are numb now, and not in a good way. There's a tingling that says, today will be long, possibly very long. But just then, the sun slices through the clouds, thin, hesitant beams that glint off wet wood and thatch. For a moment, the street looks almost beautiful. The steam rising from the puddles curls like lazy ghosts. A washerwoman hums a tune you half recognize from modern movies, except, of course, it predates all that by centuries. The melody is haunting, soft, and stubborn as ivy. And just as your muscles begin to loosen, just as you think, maybe this won't be so bad, a rooster flaps out of nowhere and nearly takes your ear off. You duck instinctively, heart leaping like a startled rabbit. A man laughs from a doorway. First time? He says with a grin. You manage a smile, shaky but polite. Your feet sting. Your back's already starting to ache. And the day has barely begun. Your fingers are cold, your feet are soaked, and your stomach is now loudly reminding you that half a crust and some lukewarm ale do not a meal make. Unfortunately, you're not heading to a cozy bakery for a croissant and espresso. This is Tudor England. Breakfast, if it exists at all, is a survival bonus. You glance down the street and follow the scent of something cooking, or burning, it's hard to tell. A thin ribbon of smoke curls up from the side of a small alehouse. And your nose, ever hopeful, urges your legs in that direction. The smell could be roasted barley or singed wool. Either way, it's warm, and that's enough. Inside the tavern, the air is thick with smoke and yeast. The ceiling beams are low enough that you duck instinctively, even though you're not especially tall. The hearth is lit, more glowing ember than fire, but it pushes back the cold just enough for your fingers to start tingling again. There's a woman behind the counter, sleeves rolled up to the elbow, hair tucked beneath a linen coif. She nods at you without a smile. This is business, not hospitality, and jerks her head toward a communal bench. You take your seat beside a man with hands like shovels and a smell that suggests he's been mucking stables since before the sun rose. You wait, not for a menu. There is no menu, but for whatever's in the pot today. A boy eventually slams down a wooden bowl filled with something that vaguely resembles stew. You poke it with a spoon. It wiggles. The smell is promising? There's definitely mutton, or a cousin of mutton, swimming among roots and herbs that may or may not have been washed. You scoop up a bite and the heat bites back. Your tongue flares with pain, but you swallow quickly so you don't seem too precious. Around you, others are already halfway through, slurping and smacking their lips with the urgency of those who've known real hunger. A tankard appears next, thick, bitter ale, barely chilled. You sip and it washes away the stew's heat but leaves behind a taste like rusty spoon and wet grass. Still, it's better than the water. People do drink water here, but only when they have to. Wells are often contaminated, and rivers double as laundry basins and latrines. You notice the floor beneath your boots is sticky. Not fresh sticky, either. Centuries sticky. This place has soaked up every spilled pint, dropped hunk of bread, and hushed secret exchanged over cups. You can almost hear the ghosts of 1,000 meals murmuring beneath your bench. There's a dog under the table now, nudging your shin with a practiced snout. You drop a bit of turnip, accidentally on purpose, and it disappears with a soft crunch. The man beside you grunts approval. Good manners, he says, probably about the dog. Historians still argue whether common folk in Tudor towns regularly ate meat, or if it was more of a feast day treat. What you're eating might be meat, or it might be something creatively named to sound like meat. Either way, it's hot and filling. Mostly. The tavern door swings open, letting in a draft of sour wind and a new customer wrapped in a cloak that's more holes than fabric. He mumbles something to the innkeeper, points at a shelf, and receives a single onion in return. Payment is a coin so thin it may have once been real money. Or perhaps just a very flat button. No one argues. This is how barter and coin coexist here. What matters is use, not denomination. You could pay with eggs, wool, or even a favor. Money talks, but it also wheezes, stammers, and occasionally disappears under a floorboard. Back at your bench, you focus on chewing. The meat, you're choosing to call it that, is fibrous and slightly chewy. Like jerky left in the rain. You glance around to see if anyone else looks concerned. They don't. Your stomach, a gullible optimist, decides this is good news. Outside, the street sounds resume, a mix of laughter, wheels, chickens, and distant hammering. Your senses are slowly adjusting, mapping this strange, sour, textured world. Even your body is catching up. Your back loosens, your hands thaw, your eyes no longer sting from the smoke, at least. Not as much. One corner of the tavern is occupied by an old man mumbling through toothless gums, gesturing as if he's narrating an epic. No one listens, but he continues, unbothered. He might be a former soldier. He might be someone who just never stopped talking after his first pint, 20 years ago. Your bowl is nearly empty. A thick layer of grease clings to the rim, and you wipe it with the last crust of bread. A trick you definitely saw someone else do first. Your mother would cringe, but she's centuries away, and this is survival with a side of etiquette improvisation. Then someone says it, low and quick. The queen's getting restless. It's just a whisper, but it moves like smoke. Heads tilt, eyes narrow. You feel it pass through the room like a chill. There's no need to ask which queen. It's always the queen. Rumors are currency here, traded like eggs or ale. Someone mentions a cousin who saw someone disappear after saying the wrong thing too loudly. You sip your ale and stare at your bowl, pretending you didn't hear. The tension settles again, subtle but prickly. You scratch your wrist, where the wool is already raising a rash. Your skin feels like it belongs to someone else. Maybe it does, maybe that's the price of time travel. And just as you start to feel full, even a little sleepy from the warmth and stew and low, comforting clatter of dishes and gossip, the boy returns with a bucket and a mop that's more stick than bristle. Time to leave. You step out of the tavern and straight into a pile of something you'd rather not identify. It squishes unpleasantly beneath your boot, and your sigh steams in the cool morning air. Welcome back to the street, where every step is a gamble and every breath carries the chance of regret. The town is awake now. Fully, loudly. The once misty hush has been replaced by an orchestra of everyday commotion, metal on metal from blacksmith shops. The clatter of wooden wheels on stone, the shrill bargaining cries from market stalls, and through it all, the ever-present, nose-scrunching stink of Tudor life. You weave your way through the narrow, winding lanes, ducking beneath sagging upper stories that lean so far overhead. They seem to whisper secrets to each other across the gap. The buildings are timber-framed and haphazardly angled, some propped up with beams that look a few strong gusts away from surrender. Your boots, already damp from earlier, begin to give up the battle. Each step through the thick slush of refuse and runoff is a squelch followed by a slight tug, as if the street itself would very much like to keep you. The gutters run through the center of the road, a poor man's moat full of things you probably shouldn't look too closely at. Chamber pots are still being emptied, not always with warning. You learn fast to hug the buildings and glance up. People here don't always shout, "Gardez-vous," in time. Some don't shout at all. Consider it a form of passive-aggressive neighborly sabotage. And then comes the smell, like old fish left in a boot. Like someone tried to pickle smoke and vinegar in a jar and dropped it in the sun. It clings to your clothes, to your hair, and seems to set up shop inside your nostrils. The ever-present sourness of Tudor air. You feel it coating your tongue like greasy chalk. A woman nearly barrels into you, arms full of laundry and curses. You both stumble, mutter apologies, and part ways like ships avoiding a collision. Her eyes are ringed with fatigue. You can tell she's already done more today than most people in your time do before noon. You pass a row of market stalls now, each piled high with strange treasures, withered root vegetables, barrels of dried fish with blank, accusing eyes, small wheels of cheese wrapped in waxed cloth, and flies. So many flies, buzzing like gossip made visible. A merchant calls out to you, waving a bruised apple like a prize. Fresh picked, he insists. The wormhole you spot near the stem says otherwise. Still, it's the thought that counts. You glance toward the butcher's stall and instantly regret it. The meat hangs in strips and chunks, unidentifiable and leaking into the straw beneath. A boy with a blood-spattered apron grins at you and tosses a bone to a waiting dog. The dog doesn't wait long. Historians often debate how widespread street sanitation efforts were in Tudor towns. Some argue city ordinances were strictly enforced. Others say they were just hopeful poetry scrawled on parchment. Judging by the color of the puddle you just sidestepped, you suspect the latter. And then, from somewhere up the lane, a bell rings. Not the church bell this time, but the sharper clang of a tradesman announcing his services. A tinker, maybe, or a knife grinder. The sound cuts through the air like a warning and fades into the next cry, a fishwife shouting about eels. Which is somehow even more unsettling than it sounds. Your path takes you through a narrow alley now, shaded and cool. The walls are close enough to brush your shoulders. And the smell shifts again, mildew, tallow, The faint iron scent of rusted nails. You pause to let a cart pass at the other end, pulled by a donkey with a limp and a personality. A man selling ribbons catches your eye and gives you a hopeful nod. You shake your head and move on. There's nothing gentle about saying no here, just a nod, a glance, a silence. Words are saved for things that matter, or for things that might get you killed. Your hands tingle again, cold, wet, still aching from the tavern's stew spoon. You rub them together and blow gently into your fingers. They smell like wood smoke and grease. You imagine what soap must cost. You imagine what it must feel like. The town square opens up ahead, and you feel it before you see it, a slight breeze. The whiter sky above, the collective energy of people gathering. This is where the news happens. Where announcements are nailed to posts. Where performers sometimes sing for coins. Where punishments are meted out. Where eyes meet and people wonder what you're doing here. You wander toward a group gathered near a stone platform. But it's not an event today, just men unloading sacks of grain. Their backs bent like drawn bows. Their shirts are stained and torn. And you spot more skin than fabric. They laugh anyway, even while groaning through the lift. One sees you watching and grins. Want to turn? He jokes. You decline with a polite shake of the head. And he nods as if to say, "Didn't think so." Your back aches just watching. You continue on, dodging chickens, stepping over ropes, trying not to slip in anything that looks suspiciously shiny. A woman calls after her child, who's toddled dangerously close to the gutter stream. The toddler looks back with a scowl that suggests he's been here before. And just as you begin to think maybe, you're finding your rhythm in this noisy, muddy, smelly ballet, a man shouts, loud, angry. Somewhere behind you, you freeze. You feel your shoulders tighten. Your heart thudding against your ribs like a battering ram. You don't know what he said, or if it was meant for you. But in Tudor England, you don't need to be guilty, just unlucky. And just like that, your quiet walk turns into a careful, calculated escape. You don't run, but your feet quicken, squelching through the muck with a rhythm that says, "I was never here." Behind you, the man's shouting fades into other voices. Other noise. Maybe he was yelling at someone else. Maybe it was a merchant dispute. Maybe you just looked too long at something you shouldn't have. In Tudor England, your best defense is to blend in. Keep your head down. Move like you belong. Even if your knees ache and your face keeps flinching at smells it wasn't evolved to process. The main road curves ahead. And suddenly you're in the thick of it, a living tide of townsfolk. And this is what they call bustle. It's less like a flow and more like a daily stampede. Carts creak under the weight of goods. Geese flap and honk as they're herded through legs and wheels. A man yells about dried herring while balancing a barrel on his back. A young woman calls out the price of her turnips, voice high and defiant. And somewhere nearby, someone is either playing a lute or strangling a cat. The sound is ambiguous. You duck as a broom sweeps overhead, a shopkeeper shooing pigeons off a sign. Feathers drift like soft insults. The smell of smoke and yeast and manure follows you like an over-friendly dog. And then, just past the fishmonger's stall, he nods at you with fish guts on both hands. You nearly walk into him, a watchman. He's broad-shouldered, cloak slightly crooked, cudgel swinging casually from one hip. His eyes scan the crowd like a cat watching a mouse dance. One eye finds you, stops, tilts. Your shoes look soft. He says, "You freeze. Are they too clean? Too worn? Too foreign?" You mutter something about a cousin in Bristol. It's a useless defense. But sometimes, words are just noises we make to fill the space between terror and judgment. He squints. "Where's your mark?" "Mark?" You glance at your sleeve, pretending to know what he's talking about. Is it a guild thing? A servant tag? A parish token? There are dozens of small symbols in Tudor life that show where you belong. And not having the right one can mean fines, or worse. I left it at the mill. You bluff. Not that you've seen a mill. But it sounds plausible? He grunts. A long pause. Then, miraculously, he waves you on. You exhale so hard you nearly deflate. Historians still debate the true power of Tudor watchmen. Whether they were actual peacekeepers or simply glorified bullies with the legal right to be suspicious. Either way, your spine won't forget the tension anytime soon. As you shuffle away, your knees still half locked with fear. You realize something. Everyone here is constantly performing. Every tilt of the head, every glance, every "milady" or "sirrah" is part of a careful, in-spoken play designed to say, "I'm not a threat. I belong here. Don't look too closely." You walk now with that same posture, chest slightly forward, face blank but attentive, as if your day has somewhere important to go. You pass a man selling ribbons from a string across his chest. He gives you a pitying smile, as if he's seen 100 like you and knows how this ends. Children dart through the crowd, calling out nonsense songs, their bare feet slapping stone with joyful defiance. One of them bumps into you and keeps running, laughing wildly. You check your pouch. Still there, but lighter? Or just your nerves? A young woman nearby shouts at the child. Possibly her brother. Possibly not. Families here are sprawling things. Some made of blood. Others of necessity. You wonder, briefly, if someone out there is wondering where you are. The church bell chimes again. This time less urgently. More like a yawn. Time is passing. Or at least, being measured. You take a seat on the edge of a fountain that smells more like soup than water. Your legs sigh in relief. Your shoulders begin to uncoil. And for the first time today, you look up, really look. Above you, black timbered houses lean into the sky like they're listening to secrets. Birds flit across a gray-blue canvas, their calls sharp and sudden. Smoke from countless hearths drifts into the heavens, curling like lazy prayers. A woman nearby begins singing, soft, low, just for herself as she shells peas into a basket. Her voice blends into the background noise like it's always been there. Like it should be there. It reminds you that despite the filth, the fear, the hunger, there's still beauty here. A rough, soot-smeared kind of beauty. But real. Your hands relax. For a moment, you forget the itch in your collar, the damp in your soles, the lingering nervous sweat under your arms. You just breathe. But it doesn't last long. A horn sounds from the far side of the square. Not music, warning. People shift. Some stand. Others freeze mid-word. A noble's carriage is coming through. And just like that, the crowd parts. As if on cue. The great unwashed masses know better than to be caught underfoot. Literally. And so, as the clatter of hooves approaches, you rise again, spine stiff, eyes lowered, because the last thing you need today is to draw attention from above. The horses appear first, 4 of them, tall and shimmering with sweat, their flanks twitching with flies and indignation. Behind them rolls a carriage, its wood lacquered and wheels iron-rimmed, designed less for comfort than for spectacle. Gold-painted trim glints in the pale light like a promise no one believes. And the curtains are drawn just enough to suggest someone important is inside. Someone watching. You and the rest of the crowd press back against the walls and stalls, making yourselves as small as possible without actually vanishing. That's the dance. Don't be in the way. Don't meet their gaze. Don't do anything that might be interpreted as disrespectful or, worse, familiar. As the carriage rolls by, the driver, broad-chested, silent, barely glances at anyone, but a guard on horseback behind him scans the faces lining the street. You can feel his eyes touch your skin like a brand. You look down quickly, feigning interest in a cobblestone, one that smells faintly of onions. A boy near you sneezes. Loud and wet. The guard jerks his horse slightly. Eyes narrowing. The boy's mother hisses an apology and hauls him behind her skirts. The tension stretches for a moment like cloth caught on a nail, then the guard rides on. The procession passes slowly. Behind the carriage, more guards on foot, some with halberds, some with nothing but a look that says they don't need weapons to ruin your day. Their boots crunch in eerie unison, and for a moment it feels like time itself is holding its breath. Then they're gone, just like that. The noise returns like a wave, chatter, shouts, hooves in the distance. People step away from walls, shake off the silence, and go back to pretending this is normal. Your knees ache, not just from the tension of standing still, but from the act of trying not to exist too loudly. You cross the street now, headed toward a quieter lane, one where people aren't watching as closely. A side alley that smells less like politics and more like boiled cabbage. Which, at this point, is a trade up. Here, the air feels thicker again, less stirred. The buildings are closer, windows smaller, washing lines stretch across the gap above your head, and strips of fabric flutter like exhausted flags. The people here are less polished. Faces lined with soot, hands cracked and red, shoulders slumped. These aren't performers in the grand pageant. These are the background characters that make sure the pageant doesn't fall apart. You pass a man sharpening knives on a whetstone, the rasp of steel against stone sending shivers through your molars. He doesn't look up, but he does spit to the side in a rhythm that suggests he's been doing this since before you were born. Which, technically, might be true several times over. A little farther down, a woman is kneading dough on a windowsill board, her forearms dusted with flour, her lips moving in quiet rhythm to a prayer or curse. You can't quite tell. Either way, it's not meant for you. Historians still argue how much freedom commoners had to speak their minds, especially in public spaces. Some claim tavern talk was full of political jabs and social satire. Others suggest that even the wrong expression could end in stocks, or worse. Here, in this narrow passage between fishmongers and fate, silence feels safer. A child runs past with a wooden hoop, chasing it like it holds the meaning of life. You sidestep just in time to avoid a collision and smile despite yourself. Some games don't need translation. Joy can be scrounged from splinters. But then, clang, a sound from behind. You turn and see him, the same watchman from earlier. Or at least one very much like him. Cloak, cudgel, and a look that says he's having a slow day and wouldn't mind the novelty of questioning you again. Your breath catches. He doesn't say a word, just watches, measuring. You look away first, and now you're walking again. Faster this time, heart thumping with a beat you can't dance to. Your palms sweat, your wool collar suddenly tighter. You can feel the heat pooling behind your ears, and every footstep echoes louder than it should. You turn a corner, then another, and then, blessedly, you're in a square filled with sound again. Not the polished sound of nobles or the dangerous quiet of guards, but the noisy, familiar chaos of common life. A woman hawking herbs, a boy selling ink-stained pamphlets, a man playing pipes with questionable talent and even more questionable breath control. You melt into it. Let the noise swallow you. Let the smells, rosemary, wet hay, roasted chestnuts, replace the tension in your spine. A one-eyed cat eyes you from atop a crate. You nod respectfully. The cat blinks slowly and turns away. Clearly, you've passed some kind of test. You find a barrel and lean against it, letting your bones realign. Around you, the town buzzes like a beehive without a queen. People move quickly, speak quietly, avoid attention unless they're selling something. Your shoulder twitches, maybe from the cold, maybe from the worry. But for now, you're safe again. For now, you blend. And just as you start to catch your breath, a bell tolls from the church spire, and the market square stills just slightly. Like a held breath, a different kind of trouble is calling. The bell tolls slow and heavy. Not quite funereal, but with a weight that hangs in the air like dust in an empty chapel. You glance toward the spire rising above the rooftops, its silhouette jagged against the pale sky, and feel a tremor of something ancient stir behind your ribs. The market square murmurs in response. Stalls rattle shut. Barrow wheels creak as they're turned toward narrower alleys. And those who were lounging, leaning, gossiping, flirting, suddenly remember errands elsewhere. It's not fear. Exactly. Just an old, learned instinct. When the bell rings like that, it's best to look busy. You follow the trickle of movement into a smaller street that smells strongly of sap and burnt pitch. Ahead, a round-faced man is unlocking the doors to a squat wooden building with smoke-streaked windows and a crooked sign. E. Whitlock, Cooper and Sons. He doesn't notice you right away. His hands are full, keys, a length of twine, a wedge of cheese stuffed in one pocket. When he finally looks up, it's with the half-smile of someone who knows the day will be long and uncomfortable. "Looking for work?" he asks. Squinting into the light, you nod before thinking. In Tudor England, work means safety, at least temporarily. He jerks his head. "Come on then, mind the sawdust." You step inside the workshop, and the world changes. It's warm, almost hot, and smells like pine, sweat, and candle wax. The air is thick with particles that catch the light like flecks of gold. Sawdust blankets everything, softening the hard edges of the benches and floor, muffling your footsteps. It clings to your cuffs, your eyelashes, the back of your throat. Tools hang from wooden pegs in quiet order. Chisels, adzes, hammers with smooth handles darkened by generations of hands. On the worktable, half-finished barrels sit like puzzles in progress, staves lined up in wooden arcs. Hoops waiting to be hammered into place. The cooper begins working without further conversation, taking up a curved blade and shaving down the edge of a plank. His movements are practiced, rhythmic. You can hear his breath, steady, whistling through his teeth with each pull. He doesn't speak much, but his eyes flick toward you occasionally, as if measuring your usefulness. He sets you to sanding, a small, harmless task. A barrel lid, rough and uneven. You kneel beside a low bench, taking the grit-covered cloth and rubbing it in slow circles. The wood pushes back, reluctant to smooth. Your hands complain immediately. This is not scrolling on a phone work. This is knuckle stiffening, palm aching, finger blistering labor. The kind that makes your forearms hum and your spine mutter threats. But the rhythm is oddly soothing. Back and forth, the grain whispering under your touch. You start to understand why someone might choose this, shaping something useful out of chaos. The cooper breaks the silence eventually, gesturing to the barrels around you. "That one's for beer," he says. "That one's going to Bristol. That one," he points to a cracked, leaking mess, "wasn't meant to be a stool. But some drunk lad had other ideas." You chuckle softly, which earns you a slight grin in return. "Most don't think about the barrels," he adds, "but nothing gets far without him. Beer, herring, pickled onions, gunpowder, even nails. You want to know a place? Follow the barrels." Historians still discuss how essential coopers were to Tudor infrastructure. Some argue they were as crucial as blacksmiths or bakers. After all, without containers, trade grinds to a halt. You begin to see his point. Every smooth curve of oak is a quiet act of civilization. He shows you how to bend a stave with steam, the wood groaning as it flexes like a muscle remembering how to stretch. The smell of boiling water and resin fills the air, heady and sharp. As he works, you catch sight of a ledger tucked beneath a spool of twine. The handwriting is cramped, ink faded in places, but you glimpse lists, names, prices, notes. One line reads, "Paid in salt and apology." Another, "Will return next moon." Or so he says. You resist the urge to smile. Commerce here is nothing if not interpretive. Your hands sting now. Small splinters prickle your fingers. And your lower back pulses with a dull ache. You shift position, but the floor has no sympathy. Your knees crack again, and the Cooper glances over. You all right? Fine. You manage. And he nods. That same nod everyone gives in this time. The nod of someone who knows suffering is standard. And kindness is expressed in not making a fuss about it. A boy enters the shop, a skinny apprentice with freckles and a hat too large for his head. He delivers a message in a quick whisper. And the Cooper curses under his breath. "Town watch again," he mutters. "Want 3 new ale barrels by Sunday." Of course they do. You exchange a glance with the boy, who shrugs like this is the 15th emergency barrel request this month. The Cooper sighs and rubs the bridge of his nose. People think barrels grow on trees. Then he pauses, blinks, and snorts. "Well, I suppose they sort of do." He gives you a look, half amused, half assessing. "You've got decent hands," he says, "for someone who looks like they sleep with a quill." You don't correct him. He gestures toward the door. "Break time. Get yourself a bite if you've got coin. Or know someone generous." Your legs scream as you rise. Your fingers ache, and your shoulders slump under the invisible weight of time. But there's a small satisfaction, too. A muscle-deep awareness that you've made something smoother than it was before. And just as you reach the door, the bell rings again. A new rhythm begins. The bell's echo rolls through the narrow streets like a slow ripple, brushing across rooftops and chimneys, disturbing a few pigeons and maybe a sense of calm you didn't realize you were carrying. You step back out into the light, which is grayer now, dimmed by a thickening sky. The kind of sky that's not committing to rain, but keeps threatening with a chill. You take a moment to shake sawdust from your sleeves. It falls like dry snow, collecting on the front of your tunic and dusting your boots, which are now scuffed and definitely wetter than they were this morning. Your hands throb gently, and you flex your fingers to check they still belong to you. You turn a corner, hoping for something warm and vaguely edible, when a bright splash of scent hits you. Not the usual stew meets chamber pot blend, but something different. Sharp, resinous, almost pleasant, curious. You follow the smell until you find it. A narrow storefront. Wooden sign swinging above a low doorway. Reading, J. Talbot, Apothecary and Mercery. There's a carved mortar and pestle on the sign, and a line of dried herbs hanging just under the awning. The whole building leans left, as though even it is uncertain about what's inside. You duck through the doorway, and instantly the air changes. Inside, it's warm, dry, and so full of scents your head spins. Lavender, wormwood, camphor, honey, something that might be dried leeches, and definitely something dead. It's like stepping into a cabinet of curiosities where each drawer smells different. Shelves line every wall, packed with glass vials, stopper jars, paper cones, and bundles of twigs tied in twine. Everything is labeled in looping, inconsistent handwriting that seems to dare you to guess what it means. Dragon's blood, vervain, late harvest, crushed horn, uncertain origin. A faint dust hovers in the golden light from the high window, turning the whole place into a faded painting. Behind the counter, a man looks up, late middle age, wisps of gray hair gathered behind a cap, eyes like candle flames, small, bright, and mildly suspicious. "You look cold," he says, not unkindly. "I am," you admit. He gestures to a stool. You sit, Slowly. Muscles protesting. He doesn't offer tea, because tea isn't really a thing here yet, but he does pour something thick and dark into a wooden cup. Syrup of poppy, he says. Takes the edge off. You sniff it first. Smells like licorice and boiled bark. You sip it anyway. It's bitter, but warming, like a bad decision wrapped in a hug. Work the docks? He asks. Cooper's shop. You reply. He nods. Approving. Good trade. Steady hands. Mine were never steady. That's why I weigh, measure, and talk to plants instead. He waves a hand at the chaos around him. Most of these work. Some don't. Few might kill you. You blink. He grins. You ask him about his work. He lights up like a hearth. He tells you how rosemary sharpens memory, how marjoram is for the nerves, how vinegar, garlic, and crushed pearl can sometimes, but not always, drive out fever. Historians still argue whether half of these remedies ever truly worked. He says, plucking a dried root from a hook. But I say, hope is half the cure. You can't help but smile. The apothecary's dry wit is oddly comforting, like talking to a slightly eccentric uncle with access to powdered beetles. He pulls a drawer open with a soft click and reveals a pile of tiny bones. Mouse spine, he says casually. Don't ask. You don't. Somewhere near the back of the shop. Something chirps. You freeze. That's just the toad. He adds. Ignore him. You glance at the toad, sitting in a cracked dish like a disgruntled god. Its eyes follow you. You return the respect with a slow nod. In the corner, a shelf holds what looks like charms, woven bundles of grass. Knotted cloth pouches, bits of twine tied with pins. You ask, cautiously. Protection, the apothecary says. From spirits. From bad luck. From the king's taxes if we're lucky. He leans in, voice low. Some swear by him. Others say it's rubbish. But even those who laugh never leave empty-handed. You pick one up. It smells like time, old prayers, and dust. You gently place it back. Outside, a bell rings again, different this time. A sharper clang. The sort that says you've stayed too long somewhere that makes you feel safe. The apothecary squints out the window. Time to close, he says. There's talk of inspections. You thank him, standing with some reluctance. Your knees pop like stale biscuits. He presses something into your palm, a waxy square wrapped in linen. For the rash, he says, nodding at your red wrists. And maybe for whatever else is bothering you. You pocket it, half grateful, half unsure if this is how plagues start. He opens the door for you, and the cool air outside hits like a slap from a mildly offended relative. You step back into the street. The noise seems louder now, cruder, the world sharper after the scented haze. And just as you round the next corner, your stomach reminds you, it's been hours since the stew. And it wasn't enough. Time to hunt for a tavern. Or at least, a place where the rats haven't beaten you to the bread. The street narrows again, funneling you between buildings that seem to lean closer now. Like they're conspiring to keep secrets. Your stomach growls, along, echoing protest that makes you look around. Sheepish. No one notices. Everyone else is too busy bargaining, carrying, shoving, surviving. The air smells like roasting something. Meat, probably. Or fish. Or possibly rat. But it's hot. And that's what matters. Your feet follow your nose with a kind of quiet desperation. Turning corners and dodging puddles. Until you find it. A narrow alley tucked behind a sagging tailor's shop. Smoke curling from a chimney just above eye level. There's a sign, barely hanging on by one rusted nail. The Stoat and Thistle, though the last few letters look like they've given up. You duck inside, and the noise wraps around you immediately. Laughter, chairs scraping, mugs thudding against wood, someone swearing softly in a language you don't recognize. It's like stepping into the belly of a very drunk whale. The warmth is instant. A roaring hearth at the far end breathes flickering orange light across soot-stained walls and low oak beams. The ceiling is so low you feel the need to shrink your shoulders. The tavern smells like spilled ale, singed onions, and history. You find a corner bench, bare wood, a little sticky, and sink into it with a grunt that surprises even you. Your legs buzz like they've walked for miles. Your back is suddenly more aware of its own existence. You stretch your arms across the table and blink slowly, soaking in the warm chaos. A barmaid appears, or floats. You're not entirely sure. She's moving so fast her skirts barely touch the ground. "Mutton or nothing," she says, without stopping. "Mutton," you say automatically. She's gone. Minutes later, a wooden bowl appears. The mutton stew is thick, brown, and steaming. It looks like it's been boiling since Henry VII was a boy. You stab at a lump with your spoon. It yields. Progress. You raise the first bite. It burns your tongue instantly. Because you didn't wait, but also because you didn't want to. The meat is tough, but tender in spots. There's carrot, maybe, something root-ish, and bread on the side, dense, gray, hard enough to hammer with. You dunk it to soften it. Like a Tudor would. You feel a weird kind of pride about that. A man across the room coughs so hard it rattles the window panes. No one blinks. Just the standard soundtrack. The ale comes next, dark, cloudy, slightly warm, and smelling vaguely of apples that lost their way. It's served in a wooden mug that looks older than most houses. You sip carefully. It's bitter, but oddly comforting, like chewing on wet bark with ambition. Around you, the tavern hums. A group of men play dice near the fire. One of them slams a tankard down and accuses the other of cheating. The others groan, laugh, threaten softly, then return to the game. Nothing to worry about, yet. A girl in the corner sings softly to herself. Not for anyone, just for the rhythm. The tune is familiar and strange all at once. Like hearing your name spoken in another accent. A few steps away, a man is asleep on his arms, drooling gently onto the table. You envy him. The barmaid returns and slaps a scrap of cloth on your table. It's the bill, apparently, or a reminder that you're on borrowed time. You dig into your pouch. A few coins, worn smooth, heavy with worth. You count them out, careful not to flash too much. The wrong glint can invite attention here. You pass her the coins. She nods, then glances at your shoes. "Not from round here," she mutters. You freeze, spoon halfway to your mouth. She smirks, not unkindly. You're sitting in the draft. Only strangers do that. You shift, just a little, to the side. She's not wrong. Stick to corners, she adds, and don't drink after Will. He's got the cough. She disappears again before you can ask which one Will is. You decide to not finish your ale. Historians still debate the nutritional value of Tudor tavern food. Some say it was hearty, filling, reliable. Others say it was a test of your immune system. Judging by the suspicious chunk you just spit discreetly into your napkin. Both may be true. You glance toward the window. The light has changed, thinned, grown slanted, like time itself has started to lose interest in staying sharp. Late afternoon, the hour when you start to feel your bones in a different way. Heavier. It's not just food fatigue. It's Tudor fatigue, the kind that lives in your joints and behind your eyes. Someone sneezes behind you, loud, wet. You feel it in your spine. Time to leave. You push the bowl away, stand with a wince, and head for the door. The tavern exhales you gently, back into the world of chill air. Gray light, and endless walking. Your hands smell of onion and wood. Your tongue tingles with pepper and something metallic. Your stomach is full, but it's the kind of full that feels like it might stage a protest in the next hour or two. And just as you step back onto the road, adjusting your cap and stretching your back, you hear it. A man's voice. Sharp. Too loud. Did you hear what they said about the Queen? You stop walking. Instinct. He's just outside the butcher's shop, talking to a group of men. His tone is conspiratorial, but not quiet. You catch only fragments. Unrest, Norfolk, trader's wife? It's the kind of talk that doesn't end well. You meet his eye for a split second. He looks at you like he wants confirmation, agreement, or maybe a new witness. You look away. Fast. Because in Tudor England, speaking carelessly is dangerous, and listening too closely can be worse. Your feet don't move right away. It's like they're waiting for someone to shout, for boots to thunder down the alley, for a hand to clamp down on your shoulder and drag you away. But nothing happens. The man keeps talking, loud and sure, spinning his theory to anyone nearby who won't stop him. You don't want to hear it. Not just for safety, but because the words carry weight in this world. And they stick like burrs. Treason isn't just a crime. It's a shadow that clings to anyone close enough to brush it. You step away, slow, measured, like you're just someone passing through. A bored observer. A nothing. The road beneath you seems to tilt with each step. You're not dizzy. Exactly. Just aware. Hyper-aware. At the corner, you duck into a quiet lane. Heart tapping a faster rhythm now. It's a little too empty here. A few chickens. A sleepy cat on a stoop. And two old women on a bench, peeling something with small, sharp knives. They glance up as you pass. Not suspicious, just curious. You keep walking, boots splashing in shallow puddles. A voice lingers in your head. Did you hear what they said about the Queen? You try to forget it. Try to focus on the world around you instead. The buildings are older here. Walls patched with different generations of repairs. A shutter hangs crooked. A beam is splinted with rope. Some homes have charms nailed over their doors, twigs tied with string, herbs woven into crude wreaths, bones arranged like runes. You don't know what they mean, but you know they're meant to keep something out. And then you see it, the church. It rises from the street like a stone whale breaching through roofs and smoke. The spire scratches at the sky, and a weathered cross balances at the peak like it's forgotten what it's supposed to symbolize. You walk toward it slowly. Not because you're devout, but because there's quiet there, and maybe quiet is what you need. Inside, the air is different, still, cold. It smells of incense, wax, and something older, like limestone soaked in centuries of whispered prayers. The light through stained glass is faint and muddled, painting the floor in dusty reds and blues. You step inside with a hesitation that feels like reverence. A few people sit scattered on pews. A woman murmurs into her hands. An old man sleeps in the corner, head bobbing with each breath. You walk slowly down the aisle, each footfall muffled by the stone. You slide into a pew near the back, not too close to the altar, not too close to the door, just invisible enough. Your body sighs as you sit. You hadn't realized how much tension you'd been holding. The wooden bench is unforgiving, but your spine straightens anyway, like it knows this posture is expected. The priest speaks in the distance, his voice low, steady, and Latin-laced. You can't follow much of it. Few can, but the rhythm is the point, not the meaning. It's like being sung to by a ghost who believes deeply in the importance of vowels. Candles flicker near the altar, little halos of flame winking in the gloom. You stare at one, let your breath slow to match its sway. The heat of the tavern fades from your skin. In its place, coolness creeps into your sleeves. You think about everything you've seen today. The crowd, the mud, the mutton, the man with too much to say. The way the apothecary touched each jar like it mattered. The cooper's quiet, steady hands. The barmaid's sideways glance. The things people do to survive, not just the work, but the silences they must hold. Historians still argue whether church attendance in Tudor England was more obligation or faith. Some say people came to avoid fines. Others believe it was the only place to find stillness. You're not sure what you believe, but you do know this. The silence here is a different kind. Not fearful, not frantic, just deep. You rest your hands on your knees. They're blotched red now, stained with dust, food, and labor. They don't feel like your hands anymore. But they also don't feel foreign. They feel used, and that's something. From somewhere near the altar, a choir boy coughs, sharp and sudden. It breaks the spell for a moment. And heads turn, but the priest never stops speaking. The cough fades into the folds of ritual. The church is full of carved faces. Saints with broken noses. Angels with missing wings. Their stone eyes follow you no matter where you sit. Not judgmental, just present, like they've been watching for a very long time and have seen far worse. You shift on the bench. A splinter catches your tunic. You wince. Even here, the wood resists comfort. A breeze filters through the cracks in the walls. It carries a new smell, rain. Finally, a soft patter begins outside. Like a lullaby on rooftops. You glance toward the stained glass. Raindrops race down the panes, tracing paths like tears. You sit a little longer. Then you rise. Slowly. Your knees creak. Again. Outside. The rain greets you like a friend who's a bit too enthusiastic. It soaks your shoulders in seconds. But you don't mind. The mud is softer now. Less adhesive. The world is quieter. Even the market has hushed. And just as you start walking again, unsure where you're headed next, you feel it, the calm before the next hard thing. Because in Tudor England, peace comes in moments, not in hours. Your feet find the rhythm of the rain. Not quite walking, not quite wandering, just moving. The sort of drifting that happens when you don't have a destination. Only the vague sense that staying still might make you too visible. The street glistens under the drizzle. Puddles turning reflective, as if the world has laid out dozens of broken mirrors. You catch glimpses of your face in them, smudged, tired, not entirely your own. There's something haunting about it. Something temporary. You keep going until you see a low stone building with an open door and a sign of the cross carved into the lintel. Not the big, proud cathedral spire from earlier. This is smaller, humble, less of a church and more of a community's attempt at goodness. Inside, there's a dry warmth and the unmistakable scent of burning tallow and damp cloaks. Benches line the wall, and at the far end, a priest sits with a bowl of broth steaming on a crude wooden table. His robe is patched, his eyes half-lidded from exhaustion, but his hands are steady. You hesitate at the threshold. He looks up and offers a nod. In or out? My child, God doesn't like drafts. You step in. He gestures to the nearest bench. You'll dry faster in here. You sit. The bench is cold, but the room is warmer than the street. And that's good enough for now. Confession? He asks. You shake your head. Then listen, he says, standing slowly. That's half of faith anyway. He steps into the center of the room, back to the rain-speckled window, and begins to speak, not in sermon voice, but in the soft tone of someone who talks because silence grows too heavy. He tells a parable, something about a lost lamb and a crooked path and a storm that forgot it was supposed to stop. His words are simple, worn smooth like coins passed down through too many hands. You don't remember all of it, but the way he says it makes you want to. Around you, a few others sit in scattered pews. A woman with a shawl pulled tight over her head. A boy with bare feet and eyes too old for his age. No one speaks. They just listen. Historians still argue whether local churches in the Tudor era were spiritual havens or state-run mouthpieces. Probably both. But here, in this quiet, flickering space, it feels like neither. It feels like something closer to shelter. Even if temporary, even if cracked. Your hands rest on your knees again. You notice the scratches now. A splinter from the cooper's shop. A red welt from the apothecary's balm. Perhaps not as gentle as promised. A faint dark smear where stew dripped hours ago and never fully dried. The priest finishes his parable and sits back down, as though the words had been in his body all day and just needed to stretch. A girl enters, trailing water behind her, clutching a bundle to her chest. A cloth-wrapped loaf. Maybe. She nods at the priest and takes a seat in the far corner. No one asks her name. No one asks yours. That's the thing about places like this. You exist because you showed up. Nothing more is required. The light through the narrow windows turns amber. The oil lamps begin to cast longer shadows. And your eyelids, traitors that they are, start to flutter. For a second, you imagine lying down, just for a moment, just to rest your spine on something softer than expectation. But the bell rings again. You swear under your breath, though not loud enough for the priest to hear. Not that he'd mind. He probably said worse when he stubbed his toe last week. You rise. Your knees groan. Your back protests. And your neck cracks like dry parchment. Where are you headed? The priest asks. You shrug. Wherever's next. He nods. As though that's always been the answer. Keep your shoulders low and your eyes higher. He says. That way the mud doesn't feel like the only thing pulling you down. You thank him. And mean it. Outside, the rain has slowed to a mist. It kisses your face instead of slapping it. You pull your cap tighter, duck your chin, and slip back into the twilight-stained street. You follow the curve of the road past the bakery, now closed and dark, its chimney still coughing the last breath of the day's fire. Past the tailor's shop, where a lantern swings in the window like a watchful eye. And then you hear it. Water. Not the rain, but a river. You follow the sound until the street opens up to a muddy bank. The water is slow-moving, thick with weeds and the floating ghosts of yesterday's laundry. You spot women kneeling at the edge, scrubbing clothes against stones, arms red with cold. Their hands move in time with one another. A kind of tired ballet. You watch for a moment. One of them looks up and catches your gaze. She smiles. It's small, barely there, but real. And just as you begin to turn away, thinking of supper, or warmth, or whether your feet will ever stop aching, a distant shout slices through the air. You freeze. One of the washerwomen mutters something. Another grabs her bundle and stands. It wasn't a friendly shout. It was the kind that ends the day. And maybe starts something worse. You pivot toward the sound instinctively. Every muscle tightening like a bowstring drawn too far. The shout came from upriver, a man's voice. Rough-edged and barking orders that echoed through the alleys like thrown stones. Then another voice. Sharper. Not panicked. Exactly. But urgent. The washerwomen scatter like startled birds. One leaves her laundry right there in the shallows. Soapsuds still drifting across the water like ghosts. You don't run. Running makes you a target, but your pace quickens. Slipping quietly between crates and stacked firewood as you blend into the half-shadow of the riverside lane. You follow the curve of the riverbank, eyes sweeping for any sign of danger. A dispute? A thief caught in the act? Someone spoke too loudly about the Queen again? You'll never know. Most likely. In Tudor England, things don't get explained, they just happen, and you do your best to stay upstream of whatever's churning. You turn a corner and pause to catch your breath near a row of tumble-down sheds. Each one patched with mismatched boards and stitched with rope and rust. Rain drips from the eaves in steady rhythm. One drop lands directly down the back of your neck. You flinch and let out a breathy curse, not the worst thing you've said today. but enough to amuse the cat watching you from a windowsill nearby. The commotion fades behind you. Just a ripple of noise in a world that thrives on silence. You keep walking, but slower now. Your feet lead you toward a small square with a wooden scaffold at its center, not grand enough for executions, but tall enough to matter. A platform for announcements, punishments, public lessons. Today, it holds a man tied at the wrists, arms stretched and shaking. His shirt is torn, his face bruised. A guard leans nearby, half interested, chewing a stalk of something. No crowd, no spectacle, just the quiet waiting that comes after something painful. When both performer and audience are too tired to care, you lower your gaze and move on. There's a tavern up the street, a different one. The kind with no sign. Just a painted door and windows too clouded to see through. You duck inside and are met with a different kind of warmth. Thick with pipe smoke and fish oil. Packed tighter than the last. The room buzzes low, like a beehive about to sleep. You find a spot at the edge, by a wall streaked with soot and old ale. No one looks at you for long. That's comforting. Then you see him, again. The man from earlier. The one who shouted about the queen near the butcher's stall. He's here now, sitting at a small round table with 3 others. Speaking in the same too loud voice. Except now he's laughing, and drinking, and no one is stopping him. You try not to listen. But curiosity is stubborn. He's talking about spies. About papists hiding under floorboards. About someone in the Guildhall who wears 2 faces. The others nod along. One looks nervous. One just drinks. Then, the loud man slaps the table hard. The tankards jump. They can hang me if they like, he says, but I'll still die with a cleaner soul than that bastard bishop. You freeze. So does everyone else. A moment of stillness, like the air itself just clutched its pearls. Then laughter. His friends laugh first, then the table next to them. The tension dissolves, or at least pretends to. But you can see it, the tightness in shoulders, the darting eyes. The barmaid doesn't come near their table again. You slowly stand and ease toward the door. Too much noise, too many eyes. Too many invisible lines you might accidentally cross just by standing too close to the wrong person. Outside, the air has grown colder. The mist is heavier now. Almost fog. It wraps around buildings and people like damp wool. Muffling voices and turning lantern light into glowing halos. You walk with your head down. Your shoulders low, just like the priest said. And your thoughts begin to quiet, not because you feel safer, but because your mind is tired of carrying so many maybes. A dog trots past you, fur matted, tail swaying like it's seen enough to be unimpressed by anything. You offer it a nod, which it ignores completely. Fair. The river is behind you now. You're climbing uphill slightly, toward a part of town where houses get taller and windows get cleaner. Nobility, or at least those who dress the part. The air changes too, less smoke, more candle, less garlic, more rosewater, the kind of air that pretends not to know about mud. You won't get far here, not looking like you do. But for a moment, you stand near the gates of a grand house, iron bars twisted into fleur-de-lis shapes. Flanked by stone lions whose faces are chipped from decades of stairs. Through the bars, you glimpse a courtyard with a fountain. Real water. Not mud. Not dishwater. Not laundry runoff. Clean, clear water. Catching light like something rare. Inside, someone laughs. The warm, easy kind of laugh that doesn't come from empty bowls or cold feet. You step away quickly. Historians still argue whether Tudor towns offered any true social mobility. Stories exist, of orphans turned merchants, of clever boys turned scribes, but for most, the place you were born was the place you die. You feel that truth in your spine, in the ache behind your knees. In the way you flinch when someone looks at you too long. You find a quiet alley and rest your back against the wall. Not to sleep, just to be for a minute. And as you close your eyes, just for a breath or two, you wonder, if someone from this time looked into your eyes, would they see a traveler? Or just another poor soul trying to make it to supper without being noticed? Your eyes open to the sound of clapping. Not applause, something slower, heavier, with the dull, wet echo of palms striking cloth. You turn your head and realize you've drifted. Just a little, long enough for dusk to stretch its fingers across the rooftops. The clapping came from the direction of the square. And now you hear voices. Low at first, then rising. You walk toward it, not out of curiosity, but because movement feels safer than stillness. Your body complains with every step. Knees tight, feet blistered, shoulders dragging like wet linen. But you go. The crowd gathers near the gallows. It's not a spectacle yet, more of a quiet huddle. But the platform is there. Unmistakable even in the gloom. Thick wooden beams. Darkened from rain and use. The noose hangs slack for now. Swaying slightly with the breeze. Like it's thinking about its next appointment. People speak in whispers. A few joke, nervously. A man nearby sells hot chestnuts. And someone buys a bundle without ever looking away from the scaffold. You don't know who it's for today. No one's been tied up. Not yet. But the presence of the gallows is enough. It's a reminder. A shadow cast by authority. Long before anyone's feet leave the earth. You find a spot against a cart. The wood pressing into your back. The iron wheel cool at your elbow. You try not to watch. But everyone watches. Even those who pretend not to. The platform draws the eye like a storm on the horizon. And there's something almost ritual about it. A man beside you lights a clay pipe. He notices your glance and offers a shrug. It's no different than church. He mutters. You come. You pray it's not your name they call. You manage a nod. The pipe smoke drifts between you, spiced, woody, oddly sweet. You breathe it in through your nose. It masks the harsher smells. Historians still debate the psychology of public execution crowds. Were they bloodthirsty, conditioned, or simply trying to make sense of the rules in a world that kept changing them? Maybe all three, maybe none. The gallows speak a silent language everyone understands. You think of the loud man in the tavern, the one who played with fire and words. Would his face appear here one day? Would people remember what he said, or just how his feet twitched in those final seconds? The crowd shifts slightly. Someone important is approaching. A guard arrives, stepping onto the platform with heavy boots. He doesn't speak, just stands, waiting, watching. The air thickens. Your breath slows. And for a long moment, nothing happens. The platform remains empty. Then, just as tension starts to curdle, the guard descends again. No prisoner today. Not yet. A collective exhale. Some people leave, disappointed. Some linger, not trusting the reprieve. You step back from the cart and walk away with the others. Your legs feel heavier now. The kind of tired that comes from thinking too hard about endings. You head toward the outskirts, where the houses thin and the alleys open into muddy fields. There's less light here, less sound, but also less watching. You can breathe again, a little. You pass a group of children playing a game with bones and string. One of them pauses, eyes you, then returns to the rhythm of tossing and catching. Their laughter rings through the stillness. Real, bright, untouched. It stings your eyes a little. You blame the smoke, or the dusk. As you continue, you spot a man squatting near a fence, speaking softly to a chicken. He seems to be negotiating. The chicken looks skeptical. You smile before you catch yourself. Not everything in Tudor England is gallows and grime. Some of it is absurd, quietly wonderful, surreally human. And yet, even that has edges. You come across a smaller platform now. Simpler. Less official. A wooden block. A short post. A rope. But no noose. Stalks. A boy sits inside them. Arms and legs locked in place. Head drooped with either shame or sleep. Someone's drawn a mustache on his face with coal. Passers-by ignore him. A few toss crusts of bread nearby, most of which have been claimed by birds. You wonder what he did. Steal? Lie? Fail to bow deeply enough to someone with too many buttons? There's no sign, no explanation. In this world, shame is as much a punishment as the bruises. You keep walking. Your legs are moving more slowly now. Not from exhaustion, but from the weight of all these little collisions. With fear, with beauty, with truth, the town fades behind you. A flickering mass of chimney glow and murmurs. The wind picks up. Your tunic flaps softly. The scratchy wool is still with you. Still brushing your neck. Still catching on the splinter in your sleeve. And just as you crest the small rise beyond the square, the gallows vanish from view. Not gone, just waiting. Like everything else, you walk for a while, letting your feet decide the direction, not your thoughts. The road narrows again, lined now with crooked houses that hunch against the cold, smoke curling from their chimneys like worried sighs. You pass a blacksmith shop, still hot, even at this hour, where sparks bloom and vanish like fireflies with a death wish. The clang of hammer on iron trails behind you as you turn into a narrow passageway. It's darker here, muffled, and the air shifts again, this time with something bitter and clean. Metal, soap, blood. A red and white pole juts from the side of a crooked doorway. Spinning slowly in the wind, it creaks with each turn, as if reluctant to do its job. You know what it means. This is where the barber surgeon lives. You pause at the threshold. Inside, you can see jars lined up in uneven rows. Their contents dark and ominously unlabeled. A basin rests near the fire. Water already pink. On the far side of the room, a tall man wipes a blade with the sort of tenderness one might use on a newborn. You hesitate. Your tooth's been throbbing since noon. A dull ache that's slowly evolved into a tiny hammer behind your eye. You've tried to ignore it. You've tried breathing differently. Nothing's worked. The man looks up and sees you. A tooth? He asks. Like he's reading your soul. You nod once. He smiles, not kindly. Exactly. Just knowingly. Sit. Then, you step in. The door closes behind you with a sound like regret. The room is warmer than expected. Not cozy, just thick with the smell of boiling cloth and crushed herbs. A small dog sleeps by the hearth, ears twitching as if it dreams of screams. You try not to notice the stains on the floor. He gestures to a high-backed chair with arms scarred from the grip of past patience. You sit, slowly. The wood is hard, unforgiving. You rest your hands on the arms and immediately want to take them back. The barber surgeon leans in, smelling of smoke and vinegar. Open wide, he says. You do. He pokes once, twice, hits the sore spot on the third go. You flinch so hard the chair groans. He nods. Rotten down the root. It'll have to come. Of course it will. He doesn't ask permission. This isn't a world that operates on consent the way you're used to. He simply reaches for a tool, an iron thing with cruel little hooks, and you brace yourself as best you can. He doesn't count, doesn't warn, just grips your jaw and pulls. The pain is white hot, blinding, like lightning through bone. Your whole body lurches, your fists clench. You hear a crack, a wet pop, and then, empty. You sit back, dazed, mouth full of blood. The world swims slightly. The dog is still asleep. The barber sets the tooth on a cloth beside you. It's gray, cracked, sinister. You stare at it, wondering how something so small could feel like so much. He hands you a cloth. Bite on this. Not too hard. You obey. The blood tastes metallic and thick. Familiar. Ancient. Keep your head tilted forward. If you faint, you'll choke. You nod weakly. He begins washing his tools, humming something tuneless, a tune passed down from a long line of men who've cleaned blood from blades. Historians still discuss whether barber surgeons truly believed in what they did, or simply knew how to survive by filling gaps in a broken system. They stitched, they bled, they cut, they soothed. Sometimes they healed, sometimes they buried. You sit for a while, cloth clenched between your teeth, watching your breath mist in the air. Eventually, he speaks again. That'll be 3 pence, or 6 eggs, or a favor. You reach for your pouch. Fumbling with numbed fingers, you place 3 coins on the table, stained faintly red at the edges. He nods, pocketing them with no further word. You stand, legs shaky. The floor feels tilted. Your mouth is an ache wrapped in silence. He opens the door for you. Don't drink anything hot tonight, or speak too much. The wound needs rest. You don't plan on speaking. Not for a while. Outside, the air stings your cheeks. The spinning pole creaks behind you, still turning in its slow, mournful way. You walk on. The pain pulses with each step. Your breath fogs in the air, mingling with the scent of coal and night. You pass a window and catch your reflection, lopsided mouth, pale face, eyes too wide. You look like someone who just learned something important. Maybe you have. You keep walking, and just as the blood finally starts to clot, you realize that tooth was the least of your worries. You walk with your head tilted slightly to the side, as if that might keep the dull throb in your jaw from spreading. It doesn't. Each heartbeat knocks against your gums like a spoon in an empty cup. Your lips taste of iron. The cloth is already soaked, but you keep it in place. The alternative is talking, or worse, swallowing. You follow the river's edge again, drawn not by beauty but by instinct. Wide spaces feel safer. Air flows more freely here. And the sounds of town, the shouting, the hammering, the endless voices, fade into something gentler. Lapping water, distant geese, wind nudging leaves like secrets being passed. A group of children runs past you barefoot, chasing a rolling hoop made of bent willow. They laugh like they've never been cold, never been hungry, never watched someone hauled off for stealing a turnip. That's the thing about kids in Tudor England, they grow up fast. But not always where it shows. There's still room for joy. Sometimes, you sit on a low stone wall near the water's edge, letting your legs dangle over the mossy side. The ache in your back pulses in quiet harmony with your jaw. Everything hurts now, but it's a dull, familiar sort of pain, not crisis, just existence. A voice behind you calls out, young, high, and sharp. Come stir the pot. Meg. You turn your head slightly. A girl, maybe 10 or 11, is carrying a bundle of sticks nearly as tall as she is. Her hair is a tangle of knots and smoke. Her sleeves rolled to the elbow. Her feet stained with dirt and ash. She doesn't look at you. Just shouts again. Meg, if it burns, Mum'll have us both flogged. From a doorway nearby, another girl, older, but not by much, scrambles out. Face flushed. I'm coming. They vanish into the house, slamming the door with a thud that makes the pigeons nearby launch into the sky like startled thoughts. You wonder how many chores a child is expected to do before breakfast here. You wonder if they even get a breakfast. You rise again, legs stiff, and walk toward a narrow lane where smoke pours from a chimney low to the ground. Inside, you hear the clatter of bowls, the thump of a ladle against a pot, and the unmistakable buzz of children being made useful. The door is open, and from the shadows, you watch the scene unfold like a living painting. A boy no older than 6 stands on a crate, carefully stirring a pot with a spoon longer than his arm. A girl kneels by the hearth, feeding it small twigs one by one. Another sweeps the packed earth floor, eyes darting between siblings and glowing embers. No adults, just children working like they've always done this. Because they have. Historians still argue whether Tudor children were treated as miniature adults or simply expected to survive childhood with as few mistakes as possible. Evidence suggests both. There was play, yes, but always beneath the looming cloud of usefulness. You didn't stay a child long. The world didn't allow it. A clang behind you makes you jump. A man is hammering a loose horseshoe back into shape at the end of the alley. He gives you a quick, disinterested glance, then goes back to his rhythm. Sparks dance around him like angry fireflies. You keep walking. The street bends again, and now you're in a courtyard ringed by small houses with cracked shutters and thin curtains. In the center, a group of children are playing skittles, laughing, shouting, rolling a carved wooden ball toward pins set up in crooked rows. You pause. One of them waves at you. You smile, lopsided, thanks to your jaw, but genuine. The boy trots over, holding the ball out. Want to go? You hesitate. Then you nod. He backs up. You bend slightly. Grip the ball. It's smooth, polished by hundreds of small, sticky hands, and roll it forward. It hits 3 pins. The kids cheer like you've slain a dragon. For a moment, the world softens. You forget about the gallows, the tooth, the stew that might not have been lamb. For one perfect second, you're just part of a game. Then a sharp voice rings out from a doorway. That's enough. The children scatter, quick as rabbits. One girl grabs the ball. Another snatches up the pins. The courtyard empties in seconds, leaving only the dust and your rising heartbeat. A woman steps into the doorway, wiping her hands on her apron. She stares at you like you've just stepped into her kitchen without knocking. You raise your hand slightly, not in defense, just in apology. She nods once and goes back inside. You step away slowly, back onto the street. You're not unwelcome, but you're not welcome either. You're noticed, and that's the most dangerous thing of all. You head downhill, toward the river again, toward mud, and smell, and chickens, and anonymity. And just as you reach the corner where the children had been playing, you spot something carved into the stone wall beside a doorway, a crude heart. Half faded by rain, with 2 initials scratched inside. Even here, in this world of blistered hands and early responsibility, someone made time to love. The path narrows again as you drift toward the edge of the village, where the houses give way to hedgerows and low stone walls that lean as if they're tired of standing. It's quieter here. Fewer carts, fewer shouting matches over radishes. Just the soft crunch of your boots on damp earth, and the occasional bleating of a sheep who sounds mildly inconvenienced by existence. Ahead, a large timber-framed house looms behind an open gate, its windows shuttered, roof neatly thatched, and garden rows suspiciously straight. You pause, not because it's beautiful, though, by Tudor standards. It is, but because the path cuts right past it. And for once, you don't want to walk around. There's a servant at the gate. Not a guard. Exactly. Just someone whose whole job seems to be standing there with arms folded and a look that says, "Don't try anything clever." He eyes you as you approach. But your tunic's plain, your posture deferential, and your face, well, bruised looking. If you're honest, that probably helps. "You here for kitchen work?" he grunts. You nod before your mouth can remind you it hurts to speak. He tilts his head toward the back. "Go round." You do. The manner behind the gate is everything your half-day in Tudor England has taught you to expect. Tall windows with warped glass. Heavy doors braced with iron. And the smell of meat, actual meat, roasting somewhere nearby. Your stomach, still recovering from mutton stew and anxiety, tightens in confusion. You reach the rear courtyard. where a girl no older than 14 is chopping something that looks like leeks on a wooden table, while two others scrub pots with rags that look like they've been through battles. An older woman, broad, red-faced, and commanding in the way thunderstorms are, barks orders that echo across the cobbles. You're handed a bucket, no questions, no introductions, just a bucket and a wave toward the well. You draw water, you carry it, you pour it, you carry more, your arms burn, your back protests, the sleeves of your tunic darken with sweat, and you wonder how many layers of grime you've accumulated since dawn. Inside the kitchen, the air is thick with steam and salt and the scent of roasting fowl. Real fowl. A goose. Maybe. The skin blistered golden. Juices hissing in the firelight. You almost cry. Your tongue tastes blood, still, but also hope. Don't drool. The cook warns, barely looking at you. That's for upstairs. She points to the ceiling with her knife. Not as a threat, just a statement of fact. The nobility above live in another world. You can feel it in the floorboards. Everything you touch down here, water, fire, flour, grease, serves the world up there. A world with linen sheets and carved bedposts and music that doesn't come from teeth clacking and cold. Still, there's an odd comfort in the kitchen. Everyone knows what they're doing. There's a rhythm to the chaos. Pans hiss. Bread rises. Someone drops a spoon. And three people shout. It's loud. It's hot. It's relentless. But it works. You're handed a loaf, warm, crusty, slightly uneven, and told to deliver it upstairs. This feels like promotion. Or punishment. It's hard to tell which. You wipe your hands on your tunic and step carefully into the corridor beyond the kitchen. The change is immediate. Cooler air. Quieter. The walls are lined with tapestries, not lavish ones, but still richer than anything you've seen today. A set of stairs winds upward, creaking with every step like it's warning the floor above that trouble is coming. At the top, you pause. There are voices, soft, musical, foreign to you. French? Latin? Laughter. Too. Then silence. You knock once on the door. A maid answers. Older than you. Cleaner than you. Eyes sharp enough to thread a needle at 20 paces. Kitchen? She asks, already taking the bread from your hands. You nod. She says nothing else. Just closes the door with the kind of finality usually reserved for tombs. You stand there for a breath. Two. Then turn and make your way back down the stairs. Your feet suddenly very aware of how loud they are. In the kitchen again. No one looks up. Your job has shifted to floor sweeping. You obey. The broom is heavy and uneven, and the straw catches on every crack. But the motion is oddly meditative. Scrape, swish, sigh. Historians often debate the daily life of Tudor servants, whether they were pitiable or powerful in their own sphere. Some earned trust. Some stole it. Some spent entire lives in kitchens and still died with dirt under their nails. All of them knew. Upstairs was another country. And they were just passing through the borders when absolutely necessary. You rest the broom against the wall as the cook calls for cider and throws flour in the air like punctuation. A cat weaves between your legs. Eyes golden and judging. You scratch behind its ears. It tolerates you for exactly 3 seconds before sauntering away. Nobility comes in many forms. Someone hands you a basin to empty. You don't ask what was in it. You carry it back outside to the well. Feet squelching in the courtyard mud. Dusk has deepened now. The sky is lavender and ash. The air colder again. A bell rings far off. Dinner. Perhaps. For someone else. You dump the basin. Rinse it. You turn to go. And just as you do, you glance back toward the manor. A candle burns in a high window. A silhouette moves behind it, dancing. Maybe. Or just stretching. You can't tell. But for a brief moment, the flickering light makes it look like a painting. A warm, Unreachable world behind rippled glass. You blink. The figure is gone. And you return to your broom. Because down here, work waits. By the time you're done sweeping, your arms feel like bags of wet flour. And your spine has taken on a gentle S shape you're not entirely sure is reversible. The cook waves you off without so much as a grunt, apparently a sign of approval. You stumble back out into the courtyard, where the air feels sharper now. Edged with nightfall, you follow the cobbled lane toward where the manor's glow ends and the town's edge begins. The sounds fade behind you, clanging pots, shouting apprentices, the brief bark of the kitchen dog asserting dominance over a pigeon, and all that remains is your breath and the rustle of your sleeves. As you re-enter the poorer quarters, you notice the change again. The smell of meat and soap is replaced by damp wood, cabbage, and smoke. You pass homes where light glows faintly through cracked shutters, shadows of families sitting close to the hearth. Faces flickering in firelight, shapes bent over bowls or needles or silence. At one such door, you pause. Inside, a family sits gathered on the floor around a shallow dish of something steaming. A woman spoons small bites into a child's mouth. A man tends a corner fire with a stick. No one talks. No one moves more than necessary. You see it all through a gap in the curtain. And you don't linger. You keep walking, not out of rudeness, but reverence. You've seen something real. You don't need to stare to know it matters. A little farther on, you pass a small stable. A boy stands beside a donkey, stroking its muzzle and whispering something. His tone is low and kind. The donkey blinks, sways a little. It's hard to say who is comforting whom. You smile without meaning to. Then you cough. Your throat is raw. Too much smoke. Too much cold. Too much everything. You arrive back at the low rows of homes where you'd started the morning. Where nothing is quite straight and everything leans on something else. A door opens just as you pass. And a woman tosses a bucket of gray water into the gutter. It misses your feet by inches. She looks at you. No apology. Just a nod that says, "It could have been worse." You nod back. Fair enough. A man sits on a stool outside his home, whittling something that may one day become a spoon. Or a pipe. Or a toy. It's hard to tell. And he doesn't seem in a rush to find out. He glances at you. Bit late to be out. Had work. You rasp, though the words scrape your tongue like sandpaper. He snorts. Don't we all? You pass on. The path narrows into a lane that winds between houses, each one quieter than the last. No dogs barking now. No children playing. Just the soft hush of wind in thatched eaves. The rustle of straw underfoot. And the occasional whisper of linen drying on a line, shifting like ghosts. You step over a puddle. Then another. Then stop. In the silence, you hear something. Not speech. Not movement. Just sound. The kind of sound people make when they're trying not to make sound. A muffled sob. Maybe. A stifled cough. A hush too loud. You pause beside a narrow doorway, recessed into brick and plaster. You don't peer in. You don't knock. You just listen. Then you move on. In Tudor towns, every wall has ears. But some walls have bruises too. At the end of the lane, a man leans against the side of a cart, fiddling with a lute that's more patch than instrument. He plucks a few notes. They're out of tune, but oddly soothing. You linger nearby. He doesn't ask for coin. Doesn't even look up. He just plays, as if the song's for himself. Or for the rats. Or for the stars. And you feel something loosen in your chest. A tightness that's been coiling there since you opened your eyes this morning. You close your eyes for a moment. Just long enough to remember that your body still belongs to you. Historians still puzzle over the daily emotional life of Tudor commoners. Did they feel fear constantly? Or did they normalize it so deeply that it became something else, something quieter? Like background noise? Maybe they found joy in the cracks between chores. Maybe, like now, they clung to a half-tuned melody played by someone who didn't ask why. The man stops playing. He sets the lute down gently and vanishes into the alley, becoming just another shadow. You stand there alone. The sky above you is darker now, ink washed with coal. A few stars blink between clouds. You breathe in. You smell firewood, wet cloth, and someone's stew still simmering behind a wall. And just as your muscles begin to ease, just as your heartbeat returns to something resembling calm, you hear footsteps, not loud, but purposeful, coming closer. And the day isn't done with you yet. You turn slowly, breath catching like a thread snagged on a nail. The footsteps echo louder in your ears than they should, soft against the mud. Yes, but deliberate, not the scurry of a child or the aimless shuffle of someone with nowhere to go. This is someone looking for something. You press yourself against the wall of a house. Shadow folding around you like a blanket you didn't ask for. The corner ahead glows faintly with the orange wash of a lantern. The footsteps draw closer, and then pass. Just a man, one of the town watch. Cudgel hanging at his side. Eyes low, no glance in your direction. You let the breath go slowly. Feel it fog against the back of your hand. Still, your body doesn't fully relax. It can't, not anymore. Tudor England teaches you that safety is a pause, not a place. You slip away from the lane, rounding a corner until the buildings open into a small communal square. Not grand, not even tidy. Just a space where people gather when they need to or when there's nowhere else to be. Tonight, it's quiet. A low fire burns in a brazier near the well. Its glow warm against the stone. A few folks huddle around it. A woman sewing by feel more than light. A man darning a sock with thread pulled from an old shirt. They don't speak. The fire is language enough. You settle on a low bench. Not close. Not far. Close enough to feel the warmth creep back into your palms. Your jaw aches less now. Or maybe you're just used to it. Someone offers you a tin cup. You take it without asking what's inside. It's cider. Barely. But it's warm. You sip. The man next to you murmurs. You've got that look. You glance at him. What look? The kind that says you thought the day was over, and then it wasn't. You manage a smile, lopsided. Toothless on one side, but real. He sips from his own cup. They never are. That's the trick of it. You think you've done the worst part. And then supper burns. Or someone knocks. Or a goat dies in the wrong place and now you owe a fine. You nod, even if the goat thing feels oddly specific. The fire cracks. The woman sewing pulls her thread tight. The man beside you exhales through his nose like he's letting go of something old. Around the square, windows glow soft and amber. Shadows flicker behind the glass, children being tucked in. Spoons scraping the last of the pot. Hands reaching for one another in the dark. Inside one home, you hear music. Just a few notes, plucked strings. Maybe a rebec or lute, drifting out like a memory that escaped through the chimney. It's not elegant, not polished, but it's beautiful in the way a lullaby is beautiful when you didn't know you needed one. Someone laughs softly, not at a joke, just at the fact that laughter is still possible. And then supper arrives. Not yours, but the town's. The smell changes. Someone's managed roast root vegetables. Someone else has fish stew laced with dill. You smell onions, bread, even the faintest whiff of honey. Your stomach growls, but it's a resigned kind of grumble. It knows now that food comes when it comes. And always with a price. The fire sputters as a log collapses inward. Sparks rise like stars trying to escape. You toss your cider dregs into the earth and rise. Joints creaking like worn hinges. The man next to you doesn't speak again. But he nods once. The kind of nod that says, "We both made it this far." You wander again. This time without a purpose. Past shutters that rattle. Past pots left to soak. Past shoes drying by doors. And then you see it, another small fire. This one inside a home. Its light bleeding gently onto the street. You peek inside. A woman sits stirring a pot. A man dozes beside her, chin on his chest. Two children, curled like commas beneath a blanket of patchwork wool, sleep with open mouths and foreheads shining with the soft light of a day survived. You step away, slowly, tenderly. There's a sweetness in seeing other people's peace, even when it's not your own. You find your way back to your quarters, if they can be called that. A room, a space, a sloped ceiling, the smell of wax and damp straw. The fire inside is small, but waiting. A bowl sits by the hearth, thin broth, still warm. You sit cross-legged, spoon in hand, and eat in silence. The floor is rough, the walls lean inward, your breath fogs just faintly in the air. But there's quiet, not the dangerous kind, the kind that feels earned. The kind that says, for now. No one is knocking, and just as your eyes begin to droop, as the fire settles into a low orange sigh, you hear a creak upstairs, a board shifting, a voice, low and gentle, telling someone good night. It doesn't belong to you, but it softens something anyway. You wake with a start, not from noise, but from the absence of it. The hearth has gone out. The embers, once bright, now sulk beneath a skin of ash. The silence presses in around you like cold linen. Your limbs are stiff, tucked in awkward shapes you don't remember choosing. Your mouth is dry. Your jaw hums a faint warning that the pain isn't gone, it's simply sleeping. Like everything else, you sit up slowly. Something rustles nearby. A mouse, maybe, or your own thoughts scurrying back into place. Your hand reaches for your tunic, fingers finding the fabric damp with your own sweat. The scratchy wool clings like a second skin, one that forgot to breathe. You shift, and that's when you feel it. The itch. It starts on your neck, then your ribs, then the backs of your knees. A dozen tiny pinpricks flaring to life all at once. You scratch. You regret it. You scratch again. The rash is back. It might be the wool, might be the smoke, might be the stew, or it might be the invisible tenants of your straw-stuffed bed, fleas, lice, or something even less poetic. You groan softly and light a tallow candle. Its flame flickers with judgment. Beside the hearth, you remember the balm from the apothecary. You unwrap it from the linen bundle. It smells of vinegar, crushed mint, and something faintly animal. You smear it across your skin anyway. It burns like betrayal, but in that weird, encouraging way, like maybe it's working. You glance around the room. No window. Just one shutter pried open slightly, letting in a slice of moonlight that falls on the floor like a lazy ghost. You shift to your feet. Every joint pops. You mutter a prayer you barely remember the words to, part habit, part superstition. Your feet slap against the wood floor, still slightly damp from the rain that crept in under the threshold. Then you hear the scratching. Not the inside of your shirt kind. The inside the walls kind. You freeze. It comes again. A soft, methodical sound, like claws on timber. Rats. Of course. They live here too. Pay no rent. Demand no firewood. They just exist. You grab a nearby stick, more symbolic than useful, and tap the wall once. The sound stops. You wait. Then you hear it again. Under the floor this time. A different rat, or the same one, playing a clever game. You step lightly around the edge of the room, where the floor creaks less, and open the door to the outer corridor. It groans like it hasn't been opened in decades. You wince. Outside, the night is damp and still. Mist curls along the ground like it's searching for someone. A dog barks. Once, somewhere far away, the moon hangs low, shrouded in thin clouds that turn its light to a sour silver. You breathe deep, and instantly regret it. The chamber pots have been emptied into the ditch behind the row of houses. The sour tang of it laces the air. Even the mist recoils. You walk a few steps to the water barrel and splash your face. The cold bites. Sharp. Real. You blink hard and suddenly feel more awake than you've been all day. And still. The itch. You roll your sleeves up and inspect your arms. Red welts. Not many. But enough. You remember what the apothecary said: if it gets worse, boil your clothes. You glance back at the house. Boiling would require a pot. And wood. And time. None of which belong to you. Historians still argue whether rashes and bites were more common in towns or countryside. Some claim urban dwellers suffered more from vermin. Others argue that everyone itched in the 16th century. It was the only thing truly shared by all classes. You pick up a stone and toss it gently into the alley. It clinks against the cobbles. Nothing stirs. You feel oddly victorious. Back inside, you poke at the hearth. A few embers glow like sullen eyes. You coax them with a bit of dry straw and some torn cloth. The flame hesitates, then catches. A low fire returns. Flickering, humming. It's not warmth. Not really. But it's a promise. You sit again beside it. Knees drawn to your chest. Tunic rumpled. Skin stinging. And then something tickles your ankle. You look down. A flea. Bold. Unapologetic. You flick it away and sigh. Your body is tired of being a habitat. You lie down. One arm across your eyes. The other curled protectively over your stomach. Sleep comes slowly this time. Like a wary visitor. You dream of water. Of soap. Of sheets that smell like wind and nothing else. And just as you start to drift, lulled by the fire's mutter and the distant whisper of rats chewing on someone else's supper, you think, tomorrow, you'll ask the apothecary about a stronger salve. Or a potion. Or a time machine. You wake to silence. Not peaceful silence, unnatural silence. The kind that creeps under the door, settles into your lungs, and whispers that something is off. The hearth is cold. No glow. No embers. Just gray ash scattered like dust from a long-forgotten memory. Your body, still tangled in the same scratchy blanket, has curled in on itself. You're stiff, sore in ways you didn't know people could be sore. Your shoulders feel like bags of stones. Your hips ache. Your face? Still tender from the day before. That empty socket where your tooth used to be. It's no longer screaming, but it grumbles like a neighbor with a grudge. You shift upright, eyes slow to adjust in the dimness. The candle beside you burned down to a wax puddle sometime in the night. You touch it and it flakes. Cold and dry. Your breath fogs. You can see it. Indoors. The cold here isn't just air, it's presence. It clings to your clothes. Wraps around your ankles. Lives in your bones. You rub your arms. Pull the blanket tighter. And sit still. Hoping the chill might take pity on you. It doesn't. Your ears tune in. No sounds of footsteps. No clatter of pots. No roosters. No wind. That's when you feel it. Fear. You don't know why. Not yet. But it settles in your stomach like a stone dropped in soup. You slide from your blanket. Stand slowly, joints protesting every movement, and tiptoe to the door. It's shut. Latched. Just like you left it. Still. You press your ear to the wood. Nothing. Then, a thump. Distant. One. Then nothing. You strain harder. And hear, breathing? Or was that yours? You slide the crate back under the latch, a makeshift barricade. You don't care how silly it seems. Last night was enough warning. 3 knocks from the dark. A voice you never asked for. Footsteps disappearing into mist. You've seen things. Heard things. Smelled things. And now, you trust your instinct more than anything else. You return to the hearth. Touch the ashes. Still cold. Your fingers come away gray. Smudged like charcoal sketches of your own survival. You should light a fire. You should try to make tea. But you sit. Because you're remembering something the priest told you, something half said. Like most things in this world, at night, you double-check the hearth. Once for fire. Once for ghosts. You didn't check it before sleeping. You look toward the far corner of the room. The shadows are thick. Thicker than they should be. You rise again. Not because you want to. But because your body has that ancient wiring. What some might call superstition. But what you now call common sense. You grab the broom. The one you used to sweep yesterday. You carry it with you. Point first. A comfort object. A poor sword. You poke at the corner. Nothing. You exhale. Half relieved. Half frustrated. Still no sounds from outside. You move to the wall and unlatch the shutter just an inch. Outside. The lane is thick with fog. The kind of fog that feels like breath on your skin. It swallows the buildings, the sky, the moon. You can see only 10 feet ahead, and then, white nothing. You close the shutter again. Slowly. Then you hear it. A rustle. Inside. You freeze. Every hair on your arm stands up like reeds in a storm. You wait. Again, rustle. You glance down. And then you see it. A rat. Small. Gray. Brazen. It trots across the floor like it owns the place. Stops beside your empty bowl. Sniffs. Looks up at you. As if to say, "Is this all?" You throw the broom. Not hard. Not accurately. The rat doesn't even flinch. It trots behind the hearth and vanishes. You sigh. Historians still debate whether Tudor homes were infested constantly or only seasonally. You're here now. You have your answer. You decide. Fire. Fire might help. You find a handful of kindling. A twist of cloth. And a few splinters from the doorframe you broke earlier. Don't ask. You strike flint. Once. Twice. Spark. You nurse it. Blow on it gently. Your breath wavers. The straw catches. Slowly. Stubbornly. A flame is born. The room brightens a little. Just enough to give the shadows shape again. Just enough for you to feel a heartbeat slower. The heat, though minimal, is glorious. You stretch your hands toward it. Feel blood moving again beneath your fingernails. Then you hear a whisper. Not outside. Inside. You turn quickly. Nothing. Just the wind brushing through the gaps in the wall. Probably. You sit closer to the hearth now. Blanket wrapped around your shoulders like a shield. You hold your knees tight. Stare into the fire. And listen. It's not words. Not exactly. Just a hum. A vibration in the wood. A breath in the stones. The creak of a beam. The sigh of a floorboard settling. But after the knock. After the voice. After everything. It feels like something. You keep the fire going. You feed it scraps. You keep your back to the wall. The candle is gone now. The shadows have retreated for the moment. You watch the flames dance. You count them like sheep. Your mind wanders. Back to the boy with the hoop. The apothecary's toad. The mutton stew you half suspect was squirrel. The barmaid who warned you not to drink after Will. The girl called Meg, summoned to stir the pot. The gallows. Empty but waiting. So many names. So many lives. All brushing against yours for a moment. Then gone again. You press your hand to your chest. As if to check that you're still there. You are. Still breathing. Still aching. Still afraid. But also, still here. You let the fire burn low. Not out. Just low. You lie back down. This time with your head near the embers. And finally. Your eyes begin to close. No knocks. No voices. Just your breath. The whisper of rats. The warmth of flame. And the quiet knowledge that in this world, survival is never loud. It just happens. One shiver. One bowl. One heartbeat at a time. You dream of knocking. Soft, rhythmic, the kind of knock that doesn't rush. That waits. You dream it again. Then you wake. Because it wasn't a dream. Thump, thump, thump. 3 firm knocks. Exactly like last night. Exactly like the ones that made your stomach twist into knots you haven't yet undone. You freeze. Half upright. The blanket around your shoulders falls. Your breath catches somewhere between lungs and throat. That strange cold from before? It returns like a second skin. The fire is low, glowing coals. No real warmth, but you don't move to stoke it. Instead, your eyes fix on the door. It's still latched. The crate still wedged against it. But that doesn't matter now. The sound didn't come from your imagination. It didn't come from the wind. Someone is standing on the other side. You listen, but there's no voice this time. No footsteps. No explanation muttered through the boards. Just presence. That same thick, invisible weight pressing against the door from outside. Your ears strain. You catch the faint creak of the floorboards beneath your own feet as you rise, very slowly. You step closer. Bare feet soundless on cold wood. The hearth casts long shadows that stretch like claws across the floor. You reach the door. You press your ear against it. Nothing. You wait. Then, faintly, too faint to swear by, you hear a breath. You step back. Whoever it is, they haven't gone. And that's when you remember the tales told over ale in the tavern. About midnight arrests. About constables with no uniforms but wide permission. About neighbors reported for rumors spoken too freely. About the cart with wooden wheels that creaks through the streets when it's time to carry someone away. And sometimes, the cart doesn't wait until morning. You lean into the silence, hoping to make out a name, a voice, anything. Nothing comes. Just fog. Your thoughts begin to spiral. Did someone hear you talking about the Queen yesterday? Or was it the offhand comment about the tax collector? Or the way you asked too many questions at the church? You close your eyes and try to slow your heartbeat. It's thumping against your ribs like a fist at the door. Minutes pass. Or maybe just seconds that feel longer than they should. Eventually, your hand reaches for the crate. You slide it an inch. Just in case you need to move fast. Still no sound. And then, finally, footsteps. Not fast. Not running. But not slow either. Just that kind of deliberate pace that belongs to someone who knows exactly where they're going next. You dare to lift the latch and open the door a hair. Nothing. Just mist curling like breath over the threshold. You open it wider. Still nothing. No footprints in the mud. No shadows slipping between houses. Just that same gray fog. Heavy as wool. You step outside. Your breath clouds instantly. A dog barks far off. The kind of bark that says someone's not where they should be. You stand in the street barefoot. The cold seeping up through your soles into your bones. The silence around you has weight again. It's almost too quiet for a street that holds so many lives. You glance toward the alley. A door creaks shut down the lane. You step back inside and close your door slowly. You don't latch it right away. You're too busy standing there, trying to work out whether you've been spared, or missed, or simply ignored. Eventually, the crate returns to its post. You crouch beside the hearth again, feeding it twigs and a scrap of cloth. The coals wake slowly, flames licking upward like sleepy cats stretching in the dark. And then you sit. You watch. You breathe. You think. Because now it's clearer than ever. Night isn't for resting here. Not truly. It's for waiting. For enduring. Historians still argue about how widespread night arrests were in Tudor towns. How much fear was justified. And how much was simply rumor. But standing here in your second hour of no sleep, hands still trembling, you realize something. Rumor or not. You believe it. You start to notice other things now. Your fingertips are cracked. Your lips, dry and peeling. There's dirt beneath your nails from the market. The riverbank. The tavern table. It's like the world keeps trying to crawl inside you. Mark you. Claim you. Your body aches in all the predictable places, back, knees, ankles. But there's a new ache now. Just behind your ribs. The kind of tightness that comes from holding in fear for too long. You wrap the blanket tighter. The fire's small, but enough. The shadows shift again, but not ominously now, just familiarly. You glance around the room. You've memorized every crack in the wall, every splinter in the floor. That same stool with the missing leg. The bowl with a chip in the rim. The spoon you almost threw away but didn't. This room, for all its misery, has started to feel like something close to yours. And then something surprising happens. You begin to feel tired. Not frightened tired. Not adrenaline drained. Just tired. You let your body sag. You stretch out on the floor again. Head near the warmth. Your breath slows. No knocks now. No voices. Just you. Just survival. Just one more hour past. You feel the weight of everything pulling you downward. Into something deeper than thought. Deeper than fear. The fire flickers. The wood sighs. And sleep, at last, arrives, not like a jolt. Not like a collapse. But like a hand gently pressing over your eyes. Your eyes flutter open not because of noise. But because of stillness. That deep, unbroken quiet only the earliest hour offers, a silence so complete it reigns. You lie there for a long moment, unsure if it's still night or barely morning. Then you notice the change in light. It's pale, silvered, the kind that slips through gaps in shutters. Softer than a candle's glow but more certain. Dawn, or something like it. Your body registers the hard floor first, hips sore. Shoulders stiff, skin roughened by chill and dust. The blanket you wrapped yourself in has shifted, half fallen, exposing your ankles to the cold. You pull it back lazily, not with urgency, just enough to postpone discomfort. The hearth has burned low. Only the faintest warmth remains. The coals are more memory than fire now, but they still exhale faint heat if you lean close. You don't move yet. Because your mind is still heavy. Not with fear, not with dread, but with the strange stillness that follows survival. The kind of quiet that only comes after you've outlasted something that meant to scare you. Maybe even break you. You breathe in. The air smells faintly of ash, of burnt straw, of old wood and damp wool. Familiar now. Not comforting. Exactly, but no longer hostile. Your stomach grumbles. You haven't eaten in too long. But you're not ready to stand. So you sit there, wrapping your arms around your knees, letting the morning settle around you like mist. Outside, the first sounds begin. A cartwheel turning on uneven stone. Hooves clapping. A soft voice calling, bread. Maybe. Or milk. A child crying. Then laughing. The world creaks back into motion like a cranky wooden door that never quite shuts. You rise slowly. Your joints complain. Your spine protests. But there's a rhythm to the pain now, familiar. Even manageable. You step to the door. Unlatch it. Push it open. And for the first time, you don't feel a knot of dread behind the gesture. The fog is lifting. Sunlight has begun to bleed into the mist like warm tea spilling through cloth. The rooftops gleam with dew. A blackbird hops along a fence post. A woman across the lane beats a rug, sending dust and crumbs of yesterday flying into the air. You step out, barefoot, still. The stone is cool, but no longer biting. The kind of cool that sharpens your senses, rather than threatens them. You walk slowly, arms wrapped around your ribs. There's no real destination, only movement, only this need to see what has survived the night along with you. The baker's shutters are open. He's wiping his hands on an apron, staring into a street that's no longer haunted. You nod. He nods back, the kind of nod that says, "We're still here." You make your way past the square. The gallows are empty. Not cleaned, not hidden, just there, waiting, like always. But in the morning light, they seem less monstrous, more like a wooden thing made by hands, rather than an idea meant to terrify. A priest passes you, humming a hymn. He carries a loaf under his arm. You wonder if he prays for each house, for each name he doesn't know, for each knock in the dark that ends without answer. You continue walking. Your legs ache, but they work. Your lips are dry, but not cracked. Your breath feels even. The apothecary's window displays dried roots today, curled like tiny fists. A basket of rosemary, a jar labeled tooth tincture. You chuckle. Despite yourself. Past the alley where the boy once chased his hoop. Past the tavern that still smells like ale and onions. Past the house where someone knocked and said nothing, and left you questioning everything. You pass your own reflection in a puddle. Tired eyes, wild hair, but also alive. You're not unchanged, but you are whole. Historians will write pages about Tudor politics and plague years and royal scandals. But they may not write about this, the ordinary quiet of surviving one cold night. The nobility of just making it to morning. The softness that comes when fear leaves and doesn't slam the door behind it. You turn back. Your room is still there. The hearth, ash and ember. The broom, leaning slightly. The blanket, wrinkled and familiar. And your body, now moving slower, but with the steady gait of someone who's begun to accept the weight they carry. You sit by the fire again. Not because you're cold, but because this place, strange and harsh and haunted as it was, held you through the night. You stretch your hands toward the final warmth and whisper something, not a prayer. Exactly. Just gratitude. Just a breath. You survived Tudor England. And somehow, so did a part of yourself that you thought would unravel. Now let it all fade. The frost on the cobblestones. The aching bones. The way the mist curled into doorways and voices vanished into walls. Let the smell of old wood and burning straw dissolve. Let the weight of that same scratchy tunic slip from your shoulders. You're back now, not in that cold stone room. Not in the dark where knocks echo, but here. In this gentler moment. In this softer space. Where your breath is your own. And silence is safety, not fear. Take a slow breath in. And let it go. Feel the places in your body that were clenched begin to soften. The jaw, the hands, the space between your brows. Let your feet sink into the bed. Let the mattress hold you like a cradle. Let the rhythm of your breath take over where history leaves off. You've walked through hunger, cold, worry, and whispering walls. You've leaned into the firelight. You've listened for footsteps. You've waited for morning. And now, morning has come. You don't need to fight the night anymore. You don't need to be ready. Only restful. Only still. Let the story dissolve like fog in light. Let your mind drift, slowly. Like leaves on water. No gallows. No knocking. No aching. Only this. Only now. Only sleep.